Hello, everybody. Welcome. So we're live from the COP28, which is this year in Dubai. And so I first present myself. I'm Yasmine Seghirate. I'm administrator at CIHEAM. CIHEAM is an international intergovernmental organization committed since 1962 for sustainable agri-food system and Mediterranean cooperation. So it's really in a spirit of Mediterranean cooperation, now more necessary than ever, that CIHEAM joined the Mediterranean Coalition, where we are today here, initiated by the UFM, and which is manifested with this very important event. So in this space, we will try to carry as much as possible the voice of the Mediterranean, rural and agricultural world, who are facing with many challenges posed by climate change. It is also in the spirit of cooperation and collaboration that with EMEA, so the Association of Euro-Mediterranean Economists, we wanted to organize this very interesting event on agroforestry. So agroforestry sector in the Euro-Mediterranean region towards novel policies, cooperation and financing frameworks. So agroforestry, very briefly, is the association of trees and crops or of animals on the same agricultural spot. This ancestral agroecological practice allows better use of resources, greater biological diversity, and the creation of a microclimate favorable to increase yield. With the growing ambition of the European Green Deal and the regional development agendas to overcome current challenges related to climate change, environmental degradation, and food security, policy initiatives and sustainable practices are needed to transform the Euro-Mediterranean region into a more integrated, resource-efficient, and competitive economy. Agroforestry is a multifunctional system, and it could be at the center of this transition, given its potential environmental, economic, and social benefits. There is a need today for a policy framework that links food systems, agriculture, forestry, and rural development for a holistic approach to environmental, economic, and social sustainability. And of course, to overcome the most critical barriers to agroforestry adoption in the Euro-Mediterranean region. So to discuss this very interesting subject, today we have experts around the table in presence, but also online. And we will discuss together the latest developments and the initiative in the field in agroforestry. But also what we'll try to do is to also discuss the potential levers that we can activate to strengthen Mediterranean cooperation in these areas. So very quickly, I will present each speaker, and I will give the floor for each of you to present the latest developments, perhaps a project or an initiative, and then we will have an open debate and a discussion around some questions. So very quickly, please, Ivan, can you introduce yourself? And then we will, each of the speakers can just present itself and its organization before you have the presentation. Yeah, Ivan, you have the floor.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Now, first of all, I would like to say that I'm delighted to participate in this session on behalf of the Euro-Mediterranean Economists Association. So I'm working as a researcher at the Euro-Mediterranean Economists Association on the ReForest project, which is a 4-year project founded by Horizon Europe. And previously, I obtained my PhD in economics at the University of Barcelona, and my main areas of interest are economic policies, environmental economics, agriculture and forestry, and natural resources.
Thank you, Ivan. Martin Lukac, is I pronounce it well?
Yes, it is. Thank you. Good morning. For it is still morning for me here in the UK. My name is Martin Lukac. I am a professor of ecosystem science at the University of Reading, and thank you for the invitation to this panel. Just a brief background, I have spent about 20 years researching the relationship between the plants and the soil. So how do the plants impact on the soil underneath, and how does the soil feed back to whatever plants you may want to grow in them? I am a forester by trade, and I ended up working in the School of Agriculture here at the University of Reading. So agroforestry is kind of the logical thing for me to work on.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rico Abner?
Hello, everybody. My name is Rico Hübner. I'm from Germany. I'm trained agriculture economist. I'm working together with the DEFAF in the field of agroforestry since several years. I'm involved in several projects. I will give you a snapshot on what we're doing here, what we're doing in the Mediterranean context, and what we're doing in the EU projects. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Martin?
Yeah, sorry. So I'm Martin Eibel. I'm the communication manager of now called the Interreg NextMed program, which is the largest funding cooperation program supported by the European Union across the Mediterranean region. So we are fully committed to advancing solutions for addressing climate change in the Mediterranean area. We fund projects for this. So today is also a call to join us in this journey to a more resilient Mediterranean area. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Thierry, my colleague.
Yes, hello to everyone. I'm Thierry Dupeuble. I am the director of the CIHEAM Montpellier. That is one of the 4 institutes of the CIHEAM. And well, as the other institutes, we are deeply engaged in training, high-level training, research projects in the framework of Horizon Europe, as some colleagues already mentioned it. And we are also involved in some development projects. That means we are trying to evolve and invest in the field in the way of developing agriculture and rural development.
Thank you, Thierry. And last but not least, for the GIDE, I will give the floor to Michel Gendron-Massalou and Jacques Brulé, if you can, because you're intervening both for the same organization.
Yes, we are here as vice presidents of this group of academicians. And in my own position, I am a researcher about Mediterranean cultures and languages, and especially the relationship between the Neo-Latin languages and the Neo-Latin states, but also as a member of the French team who created the Union for the Mediterranean and also created 2 universities, one in Slovenia, Piran, EMEA, Euro-Mediterranean University, and another one in Fès, the Euro-Mediterranean Université, and creates common programs with all the countries around the Mediterranean for students. And I will speak about this group of academicians, which is the GIDE, and which is a lot of cooperation, especially with the CIHEAM.
Thank you, Michel. Jacques?
Yes, hello, my name is Jacques Brulé. So I am also, as Michel, vice president of GID, because I've been the president of Académie d'Agriculture de France. After a very long career in private and public sector in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, in Mediterranean countries. So I'm very happy to be with you, because I'm one of the guys which want to close GID and CIHEAM to work together. We have very, very big potential. So I take some information about agroforestry with my very good fellows in Académie d'Agriculture. So I'm happy to share this discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So very brief presentation, and we're in time. So we'll start the first part of this presentation discussion. I will first give the floor to Ivan, because you want to present an initiative. So I give you the floor. You have 6 minutes, and you can share your PowerPoints. Yeah, thank you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, perfectly, yeah.
Okay. So Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. So the aim of this presentation is to give you an overview of the recommendations for new policies and financing frameworks in the agriculture sector in the Euro-Mediterranean region. So the content of this presentation is mainly based on the research we are currently conducting in the framework of ReForest, which is a 4-year project funded by Horizon Europe. So with the growing ambition of the European Green Deals to overcome the current challenges related to climate change, environmental degradation, and food security, policy initiatives and sustainable practices are needed to transform the Euro-Mediterranean region into a more integrated and resource-efficient economy. So agroforestry as a multifunctional system could be at the center of this transition, given its potential environmental, economic, and social benefits. Agroforestry systems can help mitigate climate change, protect soils, enhance biodiversity, and improve the overall conditions of the landscapes. Yeah. In other words, agroforestry can allow farmers to continue producing food while significantly improving the environmental sustainability of their practices. Recent studies have revealed the need for a policy framework that links food security, agriculture and forestry, and rural development for a holistic approach to environmental, economic, and social sustainability. So to undertake this transformation, it's essential to identify and put the socio-economic value of the ecosystem services provided by agroforestry system at the center of the financial focus. Carbon sequestration and biodiversity enhancement are good examples of ecosystem services for which enabling payment can incentivize farmers to adopt agroforestry system. The policy landscape for agroforestry is growing in Europe. Agroforestry receives support within the new CAP and major EU legislations, such as the European Green Deal, the Biodiversity and Farm-to-Fork strategies, and the EU Forestry Strategy for 2013. These European policies also promote carbon farming practices, such as agroforestry. Carbon farming represents a holistic approach to sustainability by providing farmers with an economic reward for the climate environmental actions that benefit the societies. There are several barriers to the adoption of agroforestry in Europe. This includes the permanent nature of the change, which has legal and economic implication, the incumbent uncertainty, and the complexity of agroforestry, which requires very specific knowledge. Farming is also a risky and costly business, as agriculture is more dependent on the weather and climate than other sectors. There are so many regulatory inconsistencies and a lack of political support between agriculture and forestry in European policies. There are also several technical challenges related to the practical implementation of carbon farming schemes, which includes, for example, the risk of uncontrolled re-emission, the identification of the potential impacts on biodiversity, and the complexity and high cost of monitoring, reporting, and verification systems. So innovative financial instruments and policies based on payment for ecosystem services need to be developed to overcome the main barriers to agroforestry adoption. So recognizing the core benefits of agroforestry and rewarding farmers for delivering them will be very important in upscaling agroforestry. So the financing scheme for agroforestry requires the identification of the environmental results and the appropriate land management practices to achieve them. The cost of these practices and the financing mechanisms and sources should also be identified in the agroforestry plan. Finally, measurable climate and co-benefits indicator for environmental results should be developed. So in ReForest, the proposed sustainable financing scheme for agroforestry is a hybrid scheme complemented by ex-ante payments and advisory services to farmers. It has 3 main components. First, farmers should receive an initial payment to cover the high upfront costs in order to remove the upfront financial barriers. The hybrid carbon farming scheme component, which is a combination of an annual guaranteed action-based payment to farmers for adopting agroforestry practices for the presumed environmental benefits, and an additional result-based payment after 5 years if these benefits can be demonstrated. Farmers should also receive substantial advice and technical support from reliable sources from the start of the agroforestry project. So the scheme should give farmers the flexibility they need to innovate and to implement land management practices that are optimal for their farm to achieve environmental results. So a sustainable financing scheme for agroforestry needs to consider combining different sources of funding to cover the cost of establishing and managing agroforestry system and to remunerate farmers for environmental results. Agroforestry can be funded through the CAP or other private initiatives linked to voluntary carbon market, the corporate supply chain, or to a combination of these funding options. However, only voluntary carbon markets are generally result-based. The CAP policy instruments can cover the initial and ongoing cost of farmers by providing action-based payments for the presumed environmental benefits of their land management practices. There are several expected changes to come over the next year. So in order to provide direct incentives to farmers, it seems necessary to integrate payment for environmental results into the CAP, in particular in greening payment and eco schemes under Pillar 1, and agriculture, environment, and climate measures under Pillar 2. The development of the EU certificate framework for carbon removals and the possible future integration of agriculture and forestry into the EU ETS would also be an important step forward in the development of a result-based payment for carbon removals from the agriculture and forestry sector. This will require strong support and acceptability among the institutions involved in the system and sufficiently robust monitoring, reporting, and verification systems for carbon removals. Finally, by attributing value on nature, the development of a voluntary market for biodiversity credits can also provide an additional source of funding for farmers adopting agroforestry practices that safeguard biodiversity. So to conclude, carbon farming programs should be the first steps towards a real change in the contribution of agriculture and forestry to the environmental climate objectives of the Euro-Mediterranean region. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Ivan. Very interesting. So we go straight to the topic and straight to the point with the mechanisms, the policies, the recommendation. You already answered some of the questions I would like to answer at the end, but it doesn't matter. We will have also another discussion on this. So now I will give the floor to Martin Lukac, and you're going to explain what is the magic money tree.
Yes, thank you. I'll be talking about the magic money tree. I don't have any slides. The reason for not having any slides is I will ask you to imagine things. And if you imagine things, the likelihood is that you imagine something you like. So then you will remember better what I'm trying to communicate here. So anyway, magic money tree, back to the magic money tree. So back in time, before we invented agriculture, what I'll ask you to imagine is a forest, a very tall forest, maybe 25, 30 meters tall, and going perhaps 5, 6, 7 meters into the soil. Okay, this is how the planet used to work. And then we invented agriculture, and in the name of producing things and keeping animals, we have removed about half of the world's forest. So what we have done, we have taken this lovely tall and deep structure and shrunk it into a two-dimensional field where we grow a crop or where we keep pasture and where we put animals on. So essentially we are not using the space above my crop or my pasture and below the short roots of the crops that grow in the shallow soil. So this is what we have done to about half of the world's forest, as I've already said. So what we are trying to do with agroforestry is obviously we cannot just get rid of agriculture because we have 8 billion people to feed. So that is not going to happen. So the challenge is how can we possibly put at least some of the trees back into these systems so that they utilize the opportunity to produce things a little better, because I have a lot taller structure and I have a lot deeper structure all of a sudden. So one of the two kind of easy benefits of putting trees back into the fields is the first one is carbon, because you capture carbon in the trees. Since half of each tree is carbon, as each individual tree grows, they will capture carbon. This is what they do. Then the additional benefit to carbon capture of agroforestry is that if you plant trees, you do not allow machines access to the soil anymore in the place where the trees are, because obviously trees get in the way of machines, give or take. So you start capturing carbon in the soil because you do not disturb it anymore. This is a little, one needs to hedge it because it depends what kind of soil you start with. But by and large, all arable soils are depleted in carbon. So if you plant trees and you stop disturbing the soil, you will start accumulating carbon in the soil. So that's on the carbon side. And the other benefit that is kind of easy to imagine is if I plant trees, I create a habitat that wasn't there before. So all of a sudden, I have a habitat where birds and insects can live. That's above ground, and I create a habitat below ground where all sorts of fungi and bacteria, which were not in my field, but need trees in order to live, they can colonize the space. So if I just plant trees, or if I integrate trees into an agricultural system, I can start accumulating carbon, and I create a biodiversity benefit. This is kind of the low-hanging fruit that I hope it's easy to imagine. So that's on the, let's call it the supply side. And what we have on the demand side is we have this ask from the society to start sequestering carbon because of climate change. And we have the ask to enhance or provide habitat for biodiversity. And this is driven by government targets. Here in the UK, for example, we have specific government targets on both of these issues. There is the society's expectation, as I already mentioned. So people ask for this. This is what the farming business should deliver. And finally, we have a largish drive from the ESG application in business. So this provides an opportunity because we have the opportunity to supply these things on the farming side, and we have the demand. The only thing which we need to do is to put these two together, and ideally we have an expansion of agroforestry because we know that agroforestry can deliver on these things. So what we are doing, and this is the ReForest project, for example, that Ivan just mentioned, what we are trying to do in there is to join the dots, essentially. So if you go and talk to farmers and you ask them to install agroforestry where they do not have it at present, by and large, they say that, look, I don't know how to do this because I cannot go and see a system like this anywhere nearby. So we need to provide some training and information and help on how do you establish and run an agroforestry system. So these are medieval systems, essentially, perhaps even older, but we have lost the knowledge in the name of agricultural efficiency and economies of scale. So the farmers need training. We know that because they tell us. And the other thing they need is some investment, both to cover the opportunity cost because you cannot produce crop in the bits where you planted the trees, and also to maintain and expand the system in the future. So what we are trying to do, and this is what Ivan was talking about, is to create financial tools that would take the demand and the finance opportunity and change it into kind of small money and small payments that we can then disperse to farmers in order to incentivize them to adopt agroforestry. So as in the tools and the actual things we are trying to develop in the project this is very much focused on the monitoring and reporting and verification of these systems. So investors would be willing to invest and pay, but they need some kind of proof that what I am paying for is actually happening on the ground and it delivers on what I am trying to deliver. So what we are doing, and this is where the science is currently, is trying to develop typically remote sensing systems and combine them with data analysis and AI in a way that we create a low-cost alternative to somebody having to go to all these farms and check all the fields and measure all the trees and observe all the biodiversity in order to prove that this actually works. So that's my brief description of a project, which is for about 4 years in, I hope, less than 6 minutes.
Thank you very much. Very, very interesting. So without transition, I give the floor to Martin Herbel because I think you have to leave for another meeting.
Yes.
So Martin, so you're going to present a project related to open innovation for Mediterranean agroforestry. So
Exactly.
you can say a word about it.
Yeah, so thank you, Yasmine, and thanks to the CIHEAM for this invitation, which was personally, I believe, very valuable to reflect on the relevance of the topic of agroforestry within the framework of what we are doing as a cooperation program. I mean, we are working with 15 countries across the Mediterranean area, both shores of the Mediterranean, north and south. And we've been around since 2007. And actually, your invitation was very useful for me because I made a bit of research and reflections, and I contacted the people dealing with this topic from the project sides that we are funding. And actually, since 2007, we've been funding 170 projects. We have only one experience in agroforestry, only one. So that made me think that maybe this topic, of course, deserves much more visibility. Maybe the stakeholders are not ready, like, to innovate or to propose projects because the money is always needed. And I think personally it remains a sort of very, very informal practice, not structured enough maybe. So I think that this whole system and the practice of agroforestry basically deserves more push, more visibility. We need to showcase a success story. So that's why I'm here today. I'm not a technician of the sector. So this presentation was provided by the leader of this project, the only one who's been funding since 2007 again on agroforestry, and they took it from the angle of innovation. So they wanted to have a sector which was said by the previous speaker, marked by very ancient practices, but to put innovation in this. And it's an innovation not about, let's say, what it's being implemented, but the way it's being created. I mean, it's a lot about, we can move to the other slide. So it's a lot about delivering this living lab approach in a rural context, in an agroforestry context. So when talking about the people of these projects, they told me living lab is like, you know, very trendy and very useful actually to build shared solutions and very innovative solutions in urban areas and for the tech sector. But they told me, at least as far as their experience was concerned, was the very first time that this was implemented in agroforestry. So the Living Lab is all about, you know, putting together expertise, the end users and the providers, really to deliver implementable solutions to advance on the topic. So they choose two context agroforestry systems, which are very typical to the Mediterranean area. They told me this is covering quite a significant share of the Mediterranean region. So multifunctional olive system and grazed woodland. So, and they work on this, next slide, please, as a co-creation approach, again, linking the needs of the farmers, the needs of the people on the ground with what innovators, marketers, agronomists can offer. So they try a bit to bridge the knowledge gap, the implementation gap between both sides to come to approaches, pilots that actually were patented at the end. So I will come back on this. So it was an interesting experience, but still, unfortunately, from our side, from our point of view, it remains too much isolated. So I hope that also today's discussion can give a sort of momentum, at least in our framework of Mediterranean cooperation, to the visibility of the agroforestry topic. So we can move to the other slide. So the first part of the project was matching the innovation needs and innovation offer in terms of agroforestry, engaging end users, and they delivered this through field visits. So really, they connected the farmers, and the farmers had the possibility and the opportunity to express their need in terms of agroforestry, the knowledge gap, what they need like to achieve, and really they brought together the communities. This is very important. I think this project is good from the point of view of the methodology, living lab, open innovation, and co-creation and co-delivery. So I think that when you bring together the communities, the people that actually work on the ground, plus the providers, you can actually reach very, very interesting results. We can move to the other slide. So yeah, actually, they run this user-driven innovation pilots in different countries, in Jordan, Lebanon, in Italy. So they basically introduce some innovative seed mixture, green manure in olive grove. So they tested, of course, using local and very Mediterranean seedlings. So really to expand the agroforestry reach in olive multifunction system. So they tried on field and they involved the farmers. The farmers could really see the benefits of such approaches, and they work, of course, with innovation center. Next slide, please. And also, I think this pilot action they did in northern Jordan, a huge reforestation projects of over 2 hectares of forest woodland, using only local seedlings, oak, kirchhoff, carob, bruce, artemisia, wild almond, dedicated to pastoral grazing. So there is also at local level in Jordan also a push, at least an awareness that there is a need to further develop local really agroforestry pilot. So this is a clear example of what we have funded. I mean, the city is huge. We have visited it, and it's dedicated to pastoral grazing. So it's also, of course, open to the communities, to the farmers. And it's a very interesting initiative. I mean, it's backed by the government, by the National Research Agency. So they also try to give visibility to the environmental and social benefits of agroforestry. We can move to the other sides, and they delivered interesting inputs in terms of results. I mean, they also link, they try to link as much as possible with the innovation side, but also with the business side also, because we need really to develop entrepreneurship around agroforestry. I mean, there are companies that can provide services. So also the innovation came from a partnership with local SMEs, and everything was embedded into national catalogs that then were shared with the communities of the agroforestry stakeholders in the different countries. So they also try to give visibility to the knowledge that is available, the innovation that are here for implementation, and also they try to link as much as possible with local SMEs. So they create this ecosystem, interesting, valuable, and vibrant ecosystem around the agroforestry. We can move to the next slide, and also the capacity building. I mean, this was really very well highlighted by the previous speaker. I mean, people know, but still there are some knowledge gaps. So people know how to implement agroforestry, but technical knowledge is needed. So they put everything on the platform. They trained a lot of farmers around how to build, sustainable agroforestry pilots. And I mean, this reached to my conclusion. This was a very pilot initiative in the framework of our program. We hope to have some more in the future. Actually, we are launching a call for proposal for over 100 million euros. So we are tackling business development, innovation, climate change. So agroforestry, as it could have its share of funding, I mean, incentives, it was said by the previous speaker, are important in this sector. The visibility, we need to show to the communities, to the farmers, that adopting these kind of practices has so many environmental benefits, but also to the decision makers. If decision makers, agencies, farming agencies, forestry agencies are not there to push these practices, I mean, there will be an implementation gap. And mainstream as much as possible, especially in southern Mediterranean country, these practices into policies. I mean, they need to be more visible. And the questions, of course, of the skills. People, farmers need to regain that knowledge that's been with the Mediterranean for a very long time, but maybe in a more structural way. So this would be my conclusion. Thank you again for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Martin. So very clear, and I think we also for now we have a clear idea of what can be the recommendation at the end, because it's an important domain, but still we need to unlock all the potential of this domain, and in particular in terms of cooperation. So it's sort of your presentation it would be a continuity with, I think, with the presentation of Mr. Rico Obner, because you're going to explain to us how we move from a niche practice to a movement, so an ambitious movement. So you have the floor, Rico.
Thank you, Yasmine. I will try to make the full screen. Yes, moving an multifunctional land use system from the niche into a movement. This is the challenge. I'm going through several aspects of this complex issue of agroforestry and how to bring it forward. And the first one, of course, often is policy. And looking back to the year 1986, when agroforestry was first mentioned, this was more or less a long and winding road through the institutions, through Europe, through the national legislations to today. And one of the key highlights, of course, was the COP21 with the Paris Agreement and the 4 initiative, bringing forward the topic of greenhouse gas removal through agriculture. Then, of course, the farm to fork strategy in 2020, biodiversity strategy. And what happened in Germany was that the parliament initiated a regulation that the German government should also move forward in the field of agroforestry. So last but not least, the CAP strategic plan that is into force now has mentioned agroforestry, I think, 15 times. And there, the legal rules given by the Europe are already really wide and really giving the member states opportunities to fund agroforestry in the CAP. And for example, it allows the funding up to 100%. However, reality shows us that the national legislation is sometimes a bit reluctant and allowing funding of 40% and such things. So that's a field where we really have to work on. On the scientific side, the evidence is pretty clear. There have been thousands of articles about the possible positive effects of agroforestry. Just to give you a short example with respect to water management, which is very relevant for the Water Framework Directive, for instance. So you reduce water runoff, you keep more water in the land. There's also a very important effect on biotope connections, buffering rivers and streams, for example, from plant protective measures that you don't want to have in the rivers. Also, the shading effect is very important. And there's a number of other positive effects, for example, also with respect to the groundwater. As you know, in many areas, we have big problems with too much nitrate in the groundwater. And last but not least, it's very important for the protection from flooding. And with the increasing severe effects of climate change, the effects and the probability of tremendous floods is ever increasing. So the evidence from science is pretty clear. Now, how do we get it into the practice? And one of the important things here is that we need to extend on the planning and advisory services, and also state extension services very much needed. For example, the 2 EU projects like ReForest, it has been presented already, but also Digitaf, they are working on certain tools for the planning and also for the decision support. An example from Germany, we have set up a agroforestry planners and advisory network. It's a platform where private planners can present themselves. So farmers would be able to find somebody that could help them putting agroforestry into practice within their reach or within their area. Also, education is super important. I'm talking here on several levels. First, of course, it has to be brought into the farming schools. And we found out this is a very difficult process, as these systems seem to react to modern challenges rather slowly. So we took a shortcut and we set up the so-called Agroforestry Academy, where farmers can sign up for a one-year program where they learn together with planners on how to create their own agroforestry systems, how to plan it, and also, of course, spread the word to other farmers. Another important issue in this field of education is, of course, conferences. These have to be seen on the national levels in the national languages, but also we have seen several very nice and very, let's say, politically visible European and international conferences, for example, the European Agroforestry Conference. So right now there's the call for the next European Agroforestry Conference taking place at Mendel University in Brno. Usually there are like 200-300 people from all over Europe attending, and it's a very important event in the field. Of course, many new opportunities. It has been mentioned several times already. There are a number of new possibilities for businesses, for companies, for consultants, both on the upstream sector, for example, in the tree nurseries and advisor sector, but also we need the development of new technology that is very much adapted to the land use system of agroforestry. These can be small scale, but also larger scale, for example, tools that are developed for harvesting wood and creating wood chips. And also on the downstream sector, there's a huge field of carbon markets. I read that 70% of worldwide nations plan to introduce system of carbon trading and carbon management. And we really have to look closer on this issue, and especially now with the new, let's say, developments on the level of the European Commission and the Parliament to include not only carbon, but also other greenhouse gases like laughing gas and methane. So at the end, there's quite a huge possibility for businesses to get involved and make also a living from the agroforestry sector. And not to forget the importance of the public. We can see there's a big demand from society to increase sustainability in farming, to get involved, to closer monitor where the food comes from and what the quality of the food is. And it's a huge chance also for agroforestry, but not only the quality of staple goods that we know, but also very new foods or novel foods can be brought into. For example, here you can see a photo of a pawpaw. It's a Northern American species, and the people, many don't know yet, but it's a very great culture that can be grown in agriculture. And also, it's very good to try out and introduce new crops and new species in the context of climate change. As you know, in several areas, especially in the Mediterranean, water is a big problem. So sometimes we really need to look for alternatives that we can produce, and introducing new production facilities or new production possibilities is a great thing that we can do with agroforestry, while at the same time taking the benefits with respect to the environment and to the climate. And last but not least, the farmers. Oh, actually, I have another slide, but the farmers I really would like to highlight. We have here, I just show you some portraits of farmers that we met. And my impression always is that they are very proud on what they do, and they really want to speak out and want to share their experiences and their message. And they're where pretty much everywhere you go and you get in contact on the farm, you kind of get sucked in, and I really would like to have these voices possibilities, and they are all in very, very different directions, and they all find very nice solutions for their farm to overcome the current challenges. And a bit stretch on the role of associations and the NGOs. As I work for an NGO in Germany, we only were found in 2019, but we are having more than 450 members now, and we are working on the fields of advice, sensibilization for agroforestry, and also provisioning information on various levels for various addresses. We work on the networking and also in the field of scientific research. And also I would like to draw your attention to the European level. It's a European NGO, the European Agroforestry Federation, located in Montpellier, and they are doing a great job bringing together policies all over Europe, synchronizing ideas, and also supporting countries where agroforestry is still in its infant to learn from other countries that are already maybe a little bit further, but altogether bringing the topic into policy and bringing the topic forward amongst the farmers. So thank you very much. And we can later discuss, I guess, in the session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Rico. It was very interesting and very inspiring. I am not an expert of agroforestry, but hearing you all for the moment, I think it's really a domain that actors, even not directly involved in agroforestry, should consider much more. And we are discovering also potential partners you're mentioning. I just wanted to say that all the presentation will be available for people who are interested, and of course we will share the contact, because these kinds of discussion and webinar is also to create links with the different kind of partners at different levels. I now will give the floor to my colleague from Montpellier, who is not an expert of agroforestry at all, but he was very interested in intervening to put together issues that are complementary or connected to agroforestry. So we will in particular make links on agro-silvopastoralism practices in the Mediterranean region, and see what can be the connection and the interface possible with agroforestry. So Thierry, you have the floor.
Thank you, Yasmine. Yes, maybe you have noticed that in the previous presentations, except one that the second Martin who took the floor did, and except in the last one, in the logo of the association, you have seen no animals. And my point is that maybe the oldest type of agroforestry is previously the silvopastoralism. That means the coexistence with agriculture, animals, and forests. And I think my point would be a plaidoyer for not forgetting silvopastoralism, especially in the Mediterranean region, because it is in this region that probably it has been the most developed even now. And don't forget that even in the south ribs of the Mediterranean region, there is still agro-silvopastoralism systems, and the farmers in these systems are still getting a huge part of their needs from forest and from this association between agriculture, forest, and livestock. And how comes this oldest type of agroforestry has disappeared from our attention, and how comes that the public policies didn't pay more attention to this form of agroforestry? I think that the first Martin who took the floor, gave us some explanation at what time, and probably in the very whole time, but I would say also in the very recent time, the second part of the 20th century, when we try to develop agriculture, we develop agriculture on a specialized way. That means agriculture has developed in the Western countries and in the Northern countries as based on specialization and specialization of surfaces. And from that point of view, that would mean that there is no way for mixing agriculture and forest. And that became, maybe it became before, but that became different and a specialized way to grow either forest, either agriculture. And all the public policy, especially in the CEP, is based on support and subsidy, which is based on surface. And there is no support for agro-silvopastoralism. And the only support within the CAP, the CEP, for pastoralism is an indirect support. It is viewed as lands that has some bad productivity, and they have to be supported as such, as bad, as lands which do not have some potential for the agriculture we are supporting in the other part of Europe. And that's why pastoralism has become marginal and under the scope. And I would say that now public policy, and maybe through the interest through agroforestry, should put more attention, to the pastoralism, even in the south, but even in the north. And we had some discussion some times ago within some different countries in the Balkans, in the Mediterranean region, in France and Italy and so on. And we made we made the point that it was under the scope, and probably we should cooperate more within these countries and within all the Mediterranean countries to support bigger attention to public policies to pastoralism. I would not be longer now, because maybe we could come back to this point in the debate. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Thierry, and thank you for linking this points. Of course, yes, we will have a discussion. I will have some questions, but you will have also the possibility to react to each intervention. So, for the moment, we all the panelists, we can summarize your position, your presentation, like a sort of vibrant call for a better recognition of agroforestry, more ambitious financing and policy frameworks, at least at the European level. And I want to give the floor now to Michel and to Jacques. Okay, how can we take into consideration these kind of calls for better cooperation, a better sharing of knowledge in the area of Euro-Mediterranean region, having in mind that we have different countries, different situations, different contexts, and it's not always easy. So I give you the floor. I don't know who wants to start, Jacques or Michel, so you have the floor.
First, because I'm not a specialist about agriculture, Jacques is. And my point is cooperation between several disciplinary fields and several countries. The GID, thank you very much for allowing the two vice presidents of the GID to have the floor for some minutes, because we are a group founded 15 years ago in order to unite 30 academies from several countries, northern and southern rim of the Mediterranean, France, all the academies of France, national academies, and sub-Saharan academies too. It's a unique network because it unites academies of agriculture first, technologies, science, medicine, and also which is, in my mind, I'm a specialist of human and social sciences, specialists and academies which have a special background on sociological influences and analysis of society. It is an independent institution, and it aims at a better knowledge of the main problems of the Euromed region, the essential demands. We like bottom-up analysis and possible solutions. Every 2 years, we organize an international conference about a crucial issue. We call these conferences Parmenides, and we want to give strength to our proposal and resolutions, which are sent to public, private authorities, national, local communities, decision makers in all the countries. And of course, other institutions I will talk about. And we consider the CIHEAM with the 13 independent states, with this 4 institutes based in Bari, in Montpellier, in Campania, in Seghirate, as a major actor and partner for us. So we decided from 2008, 11, 19 to have common conferences on common issues, because we appreciate a lot the researchers and students we can meet, and we, academicians of the JID, propose our capacity of evaluation, science innovation, and for more technical skills. The first common conference was in Bari. It was on watersheds, and its recommendation was transferred to the World Water Forum in Dakar 2022. Our second conference, held in Chania, the recent October 24 to 26, was about trees, because we found it crucial. And for us facing global climate change, our question was how Mediterranean countries can be at the forefront to ensure the necessary adaptation of forests and their management in relation with users, farmers, communities. Our method and competencies allowed us to present the forest preservation as a tool for assurance of food security. We also demonstrated that the contact between human and tree is a key factor in the physical and mental health of populations. Consideration of local population also includes, it was said that we don't know what happened in ancient times. No. Our sociologists and ethnologists are aware that customs, traditions are able to give us a knowledge of the symbolism people attach to forests. And so we want also to share the respect and to benefit from ancestral knowledge, which in some cases is very useful. The crucial aspect of our cooperation is really how can we multiply the exchanges between actors, between disciplinary fields, to strengthen cooperation programs. We agreed on creating and supporting databases and standardizing these data in such a way that it can be used by everyone in every Mediterranean country. We agreed to think that young people should be encouraged to work on the agroforestry sector. We agreed on the importance of education, and we agreed to create modules about agroforestry in a lot of schools and colleges all around the Mediterranean. We recommended improving the legal framework by adding the forestry issue to environmental issues. And that all the elements resulting from our common work, research, teaching, land development, integration of new technologies, we know that they involve the cost. There is a need for financing. Jacques will speak about the possibilities we work on. And generally speaking, the establishment of risk mitigation mechanisms in public policies could provide diversification of funding sources. In our vision, broad communication all around the Mediterranean must aim to become a permanent dialogue between all stakeholders and communities. This cooperation and the transformation of practices, which is not so easy, as you say, will also be favored by new institutional frameworks And we hope very much that the commitment of the Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Convention on Climate, Biodiversity, and the fight against desertification could be of some help. So thank you for this first presentation. It will be a possibility of dialogue afterwards. So Jacques will go into more technical issues.
Thanks, Michel. Well, I'm also perfectly in line on what Michel just said about what we have done in Hania some weeks ago with very nice, interesting conclusion on forestry. I should give some addition on what she say on what we are conducting, reflection we are conducting in GID, and also in the Academy d'Agriculture of France, which we have a lot of specialists of this kind of new science, trying to focusing on some general and technical economic aspects for the agroforestry. As you say, and you are better expert than me, trees and forests are directly affected by climate change. And so it is vital for us to coordinate and combine new public policy with the extensive research carried on by Institute, as well as with a remarkable local initiative being developed in several regions. For us, it's very important to combine policy, research, and this local initiative. Similarly, training young people and informing general public must be priority, but you said that before me. Safeguarding our forests and planting trees is a major tool for adapting marine ecosystem, but you should remember that in forestry and also agroforestry, it is not only planting trees, which is important, of course, but it is fully necessary to ensure the growth which requires long and costly protection and monitoring. We know that very well. So how can we finance this action, essential for this transition, and how make agroforestry economically viable and sustainable? Specific, innovative, and adapted measures need to be recommended, and this is our vision. Number one, France has set up a national pact for hedgerows and agroforestry, granting subsidies to farmers that plant or replant trees or hedgerows. But success will only come if the ecosystem services provided by this plantation are truly monetized. That's what some of you said before, such as carbon sequestration by trees, their role in water retention or protection of biodiversity. This ecological remuneration is a major challenge that will require further research, such as the exact quantity of carbon sequestered by different species of trees. I will add some other source of profit for me for agroforestry. Number one, and it is Christian Duprat. I'm sure some of you know him. Tell me that recent studies have shown that greater resilience to climate change in agroforestry system in the Mediterranean zone, where the trees protect the fields and give more stable agronomic yields than in conventional open field. This is things which have to develop and to say and to inform people. Number two, trees and shrubs can be a significant source of animal feed. This is not done very well, but it might be developed for me. Number three, harvesting fruits, trees, or medicinal plants can also make agroforestry more profitable. And this is an idea we have to develop and shown by some of you. Four, with consumers increasingly interested and concerned by ecological transition, it is possible that a special label for agroforestry products should be a new source of profit for the farm concerned. This is another idea. Finally, I want to give an information about, which is very important for us, is feedback. And also to say a word, don't say a lot on your side, Africa. In our symposium of Hania, we compare the attempted green dam in Algeria some years ago with the current green wall project in Sahel region. Two actions built to limit desertification, in which trees and shrubs play a major role. The results are very different, and we have to take care of this feedback. But for example, in Senegal, in Burkina Faso, and in southern Chad, we are observing the establishment of a veritable African bocage. Bocage is agroforestry par excellence. The reproduction of the old bocage in Normandy, I know very well, which is an old-fashioned bocage, old-fashioned agroforestry, and we have to take care of that. In my Normandy, agroforestry is everywhere. So why don't we can do the same? So I completely agree with you to develop communication on that. And Gilles and my academy are fully concerned and want to help you to work in this direction. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Our presentation from Michel and me, we will send it to Yasmine, which can be chair afterward. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Jacques and Michel. A lot is already existing. We have ancestral practices. And in particular also in the Mediterranean region in the south. Thank you for connecting also with the issues you mentioned in sub-Sahel Africa. So now I'm going to, because we're really on time. Thank you for everybody. You mainly answered to the question I wanted to ask, though. So I will first give you the possibility, if you want to ask a question between you, interact. So you have the floor. Because honestly, you're experts and you can better interact between you. If not, I will then ask you to each of you to really to highlight on one main issue that you presented. So I open the floor if you have questions between you, and if not, I have a question to ask you individually.
For me,
put the panelists between if you want to intervene or interact or have a reaction on different presentations.
On my side, I've been fully interested by all the presentation, and my idea is to share all this presentation with my colleagues of Gilles and of Academy of Agriculture, because I have a lot of questions on that. Could be a new webinar or a new conference later on with what you have said. And Gilles is here to help you in a way. Especially what Michel said, we are between the official, the administration, the academia, the researcher, and the local and practice, which is for me very, very important. As I tell you, I have a colleague who work in Burkina Faso, just to share this is a bocage of Sahel. See, this is what they do, and this is the picture of what he done in Sahel. It's extraordinary. So this guy should have some help, and we are together to help him. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jacques. Martin, you want to take the floor?
Yes, I had a question actually. Well, first of all, thank you for the presentations. I took so many notes. I'll have to spend an hour trying to sort them later because there were so many interesting ideas, which thank you for that. But since the session is on the Mediterranean, for me as kind of an ecosystem, that's what I'm interested in. The challenges in the Med that jump out at me is water and soil protection. But I wanted to ask, can you think of some other challenges which would be specific to either agriculture or agroforestry in the Med? Something that we need to factor in when we are looking at these systems?
Yes. Michel, yes?
Yes, I consider that farmers, which are really eager to develop new skills and new, as you said perfectly, have a specific relationship with the citizen of the citizenry as a great movement towards the ribs of the Mediterranean, building new cities, and a lot of people are quite convinced that their life would be better if they move towards the cities. So I think that one of our missions, if we want to preserve the agroforestry system and the richness of the soil, is to prevent the immigration from the agriculture to the cities, to the large cities where sometimes they will find no job. And so in my vision, education and the interest for investment in education. And so if I have a question for all of you, would you be interested in having a network, the CIHEAM yet as a network of all researchers and teachers, to be committed with your own person in these modules for young people in agroforestry in the southern Mediterranean countries? Would you be a member of this community? This would be my question. And also my point about the difficulty of bringing together the citizens in difficult situations in the cities with the growth of a new generation of farmers.
I think the answer is yes to your answer to your question, Michel. I see Rico saying yes. Perhaps you want to react, Rico. You raise your hand also to intervene. The micro is off. If you
Yeah, thank you. Just a short comment here. I'm sorry, of course. Also silvopastoralism. I mean, we have always these three parts. It's the trees, it's the arable crops, and the animals. Sorry, due to short notice,
no, we noticed the cow.
I changed my background at least to help out a bit. But no, seriously, talking to chicken farmers, for example, they always report they don't need any antibiotics. They do very well because all the tree droppings, all the little insects, they have a very high quality. But I think the source deep inside the common agriculture policy is that the land use is divided into arable land, permanent grassland, and permanent culture. And so was for many, many years the payment that led to a further specialization. Now we are trying to bring back this integrated thinking, holistic thinking. Animal manure is a natural source of nutrients, and so on. Closed cycle economy, let's think about this. But the structures in policy are often against. And my impression in discussion often is when we are showing pictures like I have in my background, that the professionals from animal science and from food processing science and so on say, well, that's all beautiful, but it's never going to feed the world. So, you know, we're talking about a high-rise system in China where they have 10 floors and millions of pigs produced year by year. I mean, that's the other side, let's say, maybe the dark side of agriculture. But yeah, the discussion in this field is more difficult than, let's say, in arable science, because in arable science it seems like the pressure on the land and on the resources, and last but not least on the money, on the price of a piece of meat in the supermarket is maybe less demanding, let's say.
Yes, thank you, Rico. I think Thierry wants to react to your
just
intervention.
A few words about what you were saying just now about the what about feeding the world and the billions of people. That has been always the argument towards against some evolutions. Organic farming cannot feed the world. Agroecology cannot feed the world. I recently, just 1 year ago, during the foundation of the Crédit Agricole, which is called FARM in France, there was the main topic was the agroecology, and some representatives from Africa just said, but are you sure that agroecology will feed the world? And that is something which is to my point of view, very ideological. That is arguments that are provided by sectors who don't have interest, in promoting agroecology. And if we get rid with all the food waste we have in the value chain, we could feed much more than the people. And don't forget, one of the most affected by starvation is sometimes farmers, because they are involved in some farming system that prevent them to get access directly to food. So I think that we have to demonstrate that such kind of systems, like agro-silvo-pastoral systems, agroforest systems, I've seen the review and the association, are very productive also, and can demonstrate their efficiency in preserving resources like water, like fertility, and so on. And they have the ability to feed with high quality nutrition the people.
Yeah, thank you, Thierry. So Jacques wants to react, and Martin, you wanted to intervene. So Jacques and Martin.
Thank you. Well, it is very interesting, this story about agroecology can feed the world. Can the agroecology feed the world? We have a controversy in Academy d'Agriculture on that. And we have to take care of the argument of the two sides, you see. I understand very well what is Thierry Dupeub saying, but when you are looking on what doing China, and China, a lot of Chinese in Africa, and they say to African people, do like us, do like us. You cannot feed your people with agroecology. You have to build this kind of huge for pork and chicken. So it's easy to say, oh, it's wonderful agroecology, but Chinese they say no way, you cannot eat. And you see, you have to be very careful on that. That's why we are also preparing with the GID some controversy on that subject, with a question to 12 countries, a lot of specialists, because it's not so easy to answer. It's so proud, it's wonderful agroecology. The picture just behind Rico is wonderful. Okay, but Chinese they say, well, you are full. You cannot eat. You cannot food. So be careful on that. I try to make in my head the controversy one side the others, but it's not so easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacques. Now the issue is not easy at all. And if it was, we would all have our food from agroecology. So yes, Martin, you want to intervene, and then Ivan.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of points actually. I like the thing that Thierry said on the framing of organic agriculture is not going to do it. Agroecology is not going to do it. This is like, I don't know, a wild example. The president of the COP28 saying, oh, there is not really the science to prove that climate change is because of fossil fuel. Let me think. So anyway, joking aside, although it's a sad joke, what I wanted to say is that this is, I think, relevant to Europe. I am not sure about the African part of the Med or the Asian. Is in coming back to agroforestry and its support sometimes is not about enabling the CAP, for example, or the agricultural policy to support agroforestry. Sometimes it is about not making it banned, because the law as it is in some countries does not allow grazing in a forest. Yes. Or if you have a field which is classified as an agricultural land, you cannot plant trees on it by law. So it's nuances like this that we have to unpick first before we actually get to triggering an expansion of agroforestry. Because you go to talk to the farmers, they would actually want to do it even without any subsidy or any support, but they can't because the law says this is agricultural land, so no trees. So I think it's bits like this that we have to focus on also.
Thank you, Martin. Yes, Ivan?
Yes, first of all, thank you all for the very interesting presentations and discussion. I think this is very insightful. So I just wanted to add something to what Michel said about the cooperation. I think that it's indeed very important to strengthen the cooperation in the areas of agriculture and forestry in the Euro-Mediterranean region. So I think that we need to initiate that transdisciplinary dialogue involving researchers, practitioners, citizens, public authorities, and policy makers to find an appropriate approach also for the role of traditional and the new agroforestry system in future agricultural policies. So I think that to this end, European projects, also the EU institutions, a network, and other research institutes can play an essential role in promoting the adoption of agroforestry across the Euro-Mediterranean region by stimulating networking and promoting also the dissemination of policy-relevant information on agriculture and forest. Then I think that we need also to facilitate knowledge transfer between scientists and agroforestry practitioners. We should also contribute to the translation of research results into the practice, and also to generate and promote innovative ideas to address the challenges and the problem faced by agroforestry practitioners. So I think that there is a lot to do in order to improve the cooperation and to construct this multi-stakeholder dialogue. And yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much, Ivan. I have one question. In CIHEAM, I'm mainly in charge of working on women empowerment issues and youth, strengthening the place of youth and young people in the food systems. And when we were in Kenya, during the meeting we had, I think each panelist and each speakers highlighted the importance of having a specific approach for women and for young people in the Mediterranean region. And I wanted to know if in the project you presented in and for example, in Mediterranean, we are observing really a feminization of agriculture. I wanted to know if in the project you are leading or implementing, you have integrated a gender perspective in agroforestry, and if it's an issue for you, and if you can share an experience about your practice. I don't know if it's the case. Martin or Ivan or Rico?
The answer is yes. The short answer to your question is yes.
Yes.
We have specific tasks or project policy on improving the participation of women in agriculture and in food production in general. I was just trying to think of some examples that I could give you. So, but I think, okay, part of it is happening kind of organically, that I see more and more women participating in farmer workshops, in activities that we do and support. So that's something we can use and shore up. That's already happening. And then I suspect the other bit, which is where we can certainly contribute, is the messaging we give out. So rather than just saying this is good for the farmers, whatever intervention we are talking about, this is something you can do, to slip a message in that this is good for female farmers. I think we certainly can be a little more proactive on that.
Okay. Other reaction on yeah.
Maybe some impressions that I have, like I don't see I see the classical view of, you know, the man is driving the big machines and the woman is selling it on the market. You know, this is like a medieval image, but this is totally changing now. I mean, our students in agriculture, they also want to drive the big machines, and they are like managing it. But I really think by the nature of agroforestry, the sense of consumer demands, environmental concerns, caring for the environment, caring for the land, these are classical roles that are becoming more and more important in running a farm system, and that is actively brought in through the stronger involvement of women farmers, let's say. And yeah, it's a big change that is undergoing, and I think we are not there yet. It's not equal by far, but I think agroforestry is a very prime farming practice that allows sometimes more and easier access also for women farmers into farming, and we have many examples where this is working very well, and often the women give the good ideas and they ask, can you do it? So it's really developing, let's say.
Great. Thank you very much for your answers. So Adria from UFM is telling me that we have 5 minutes, and if before closing, if I can ask to each of you if you had one recommendation about a more ambition, a better recognition, more ambitious framework for financing and political recognition of agroforestry, what would it be? Only one, really, to conclude. I start with Ivan because you started.
Yes, no,
Yeah,
thank you.
the main recommendation, one.
Yeah, and I think that as I said during the presentation, we really need to focus on developing innovative financial instruments and policies based on the payment for ecosystem services, environmental benefits provided by agroforestry. I think this is essential to overcome the current barriers to the adoption of agroforestry and to empower farmers to deliver several important objectives such as food production, as we discussed, carbon sequestration, and biodiversity enhancement.
Thank you. Martin?
Alongside the bits which we have mentioned, one recommendation.
Yes.
I think to shortcut this issue of policy and actual application, what's happening on the ground, what I would like to see is the politicians and the kind of large-scale decision makers to come and see these systems actually on the farm and see how does it work and how does it not work. I think this would improve the communication big time.
Thank you, Martin. Rico?
Yeah, I think it's really the time that we enable the farmers to develop and participate in future farming solutions like agroforestry, agroecology, and not to be restricted by, let's say, some outdated rules and regulations from policy, because in times of climate crisis and times of climate change, we don't really have the time to go through it again in the next 20-30 years. We really need to act now, and I hope that the policy always sees the good in the willingness of the people and not always trying to regulate because it sees the evil. So I'm optimistic.
Great, thank you for this optimistic answer. Thierry, one recommendation?
That won't be a recommendation. That will be just to notice that all the presentations have demonstrated that what is really working is diversity. That is based on diversity that we will find the solutions. Biodiversity, we know that, but also human diversity and human diversity. Cooperation is a way to enhance human diversity and so on. And I'm sorry, that's kind of optimistic message, but to me, it's very important to enhance diversity, all kinds, to find solutions for the future.
Thank you. Jacques, and then we close with Michel. Jacques?
Dear friend, this is a long story for us. So just to say that we are with us, we are together, we have to prepare something because we think about this, we are together because of COP in Dubai. And you know that COP13 will be in Brazil on trees and forest. So we have to have to prepare together something because it is a way to speak about what you say. I've been very, very happy to be with you this morning and see you as soon as possible.
Thank you, Jacques. We will keep it in mind for the next meeting. And Michel, you have the last word.
I completely agree with the aims proposed by, and particularly with the general aim of to cope with our diverse fields of interest, but my target before Brazil should be please and to introduce agroforestry in every environmental public program, in every environmental college and university curricula, in every field of consciousness of the priorities for next time. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Michel. I think everybody agrees. So I have to say thank you to everybody. We will have to leave now and see you soon, I hope, for a stronger collaboration and other discussion. Thank you very much to everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.